Important question time. Aliens versus Predator.
Are we talking Ridley Scott or Cameron?
I like the sequel better. Let's go with them.
Marcus, that's a bold statement.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Welcome, I'm the Kaiju no Kami, and today I'm going to talk about Donald Trump's worst nightmare, aliens. Alien was a financial success, so much so that a sequel was immediately planned. However, changes over at Fox delayed the continuation's production, giving rise to a bunch of bootleg sequels and knockoffs. But that's not all. We got a lot of good stuff out of Alien's influence, including John Carpenter's version of The Thing, and one of the greatest video game franchises ever made. It wasn't until a young James Cameron pitched his idea for the film. He was told that if The Terminator did well at the box office, they would consider his script for Aliens. As history has clearly shown us, it did, and thus James Cameron's concept was greenlit. This time though, the movie would move on from being a horror story set in outer space to an action-packed thriller based on the Vietnam War, while mixing elements of Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers novel into it. Aliens still retained elements presented in the original, just with more cannon fodder involved. Sigourney Weaver also returned as Nostromo's sole survivor, Ripley. Whenever a sequel is announced, one lingering question comes to mind. How's it going to outdo the original? Well, with Aliens it was simple. See, Cameron didn't want to just remake Alien and outdo it. He wanted to do something completely different, thus making it his own thing. But did it work out? Well, let's take a look to find out. Aliens kicks off with Ripley's ship being discovered by a salvage team.
Bio readouts are all on the green. Looks like she's alive.
Ah, there goes our salvage, guys.
And her waking up in a hospital above Earth.
Where am I? You're safe. You're at Gateway Station. Been here a couple of days.
There, she meets with Burke, played by Stranger Things star Paul Reiser. Burke is a lawyer to their company, Weyland-Yutani Corp., and he gives Ripley some shocking news.
How long was I out there? 57 years.
Alan.
We also learn that Ripley has a daughter.
Amanda Ripley McLaren, age 66. And that was at the time of her death. She was cremated and interred at Westlake Repository, Little Chute, Wisconsin. No children.
Well, thank you for spoiling Isolation for me, dude. Now I know that Amanda lives. Ripley reports everything that happened on the Nostromo, but the bureaucrats really don't care because her story has cost them millions of dollars. It is also revealed that the planet is in the process of being colonized. It is now known as LV-426.
Why don't you just check out LV-426?
Because I don't have to. There have been people there for over 20 years, and they never complained about any hostile organisms.
Jesus.
From there, we jump to a family on LV-426 that comes into contact with the derelict ship.
You kids stay inside. I mean it. Be right back.
You see, you push the laws and you end up dead.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom! Time has passed by when Burke, accompanied with Lieutenant Gorman and the Space Marines, portrayed by William Hulp, visits Ripley to make her an offer she cannot refuse. She refuses.
And I mean it.
At least she does until a nightmare causes her to rethink her decision. Thus, she heads out into space with a group of Space Marines to LV-426 just in case. Their ship, the Sulaco, arrives above the planet's orbit, waking the ship's inhabitants up, and from here we get to meet a ton of Space Marines. Due to the large cast and most of them being there to die, I will only be focusing on the ones that truly matter, which are Hicks, Hudson, Vasquez, and Bishop.
You ever been mistaken for a man?
No. Have you?
Michael Biehn, the recently deceased Bill Paxton, Janet Goldstein, and the almost always totally awesome Lance Pumpkinhead of the Crypt Henriksen play these tough guys. An interesting story about Hicks. Apparently James Remar had originally been cast to play the character, but he had a falling out with James Cameron during the first week of filming and thus left production, quit the movie, so they had to get someone quick. And since Michael Biehn had worked with Cameron on The Terminator just recently, they immediately hired him instead to be Hicks. However, there are still a few scenes in the movie that have Remar, you just can't tell they're him because they're from behind. It is also revealed that Bishop is an android.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Whatever. Immensely upsetting Ripley.
It is impossible for me to harm or by a mission of action allow to be harmed a human being.
Stay away from me, Bishop. You got that straight?
Guess you don't like the cornbread either.
No, I'm pretty sure the cornbread is the least of her worries. Later, she briefs the Marines on what occurred.
We sat down on LV-426. One of our crew members was brought back on board with something attached to his face. We were all having dinner and, it must have laid something inside his throat.
All we know is that there's still no contact with the colony and that a xenomorph may be involved.
Yes, and forever from this point forward, we will call them xenomorphs. Our gang finally lands on LV-426 and immediately searches the base looking for the citizens. After finding very little outside of proof that Ripley's worst fears have come to fruition...
Back up. Pan right. There.
The group sets up shop in the main facility of the outpost, which contains a lab with 2 living facehuggers.
Subject Marichek, John J., died during the procedure. They killed him taking it off.
Shortly after, a little girl comes across their radars. Literally. Ripley catches her, calming her, and learns her name.
My name's Newt.
Newt? I like that.
Newt? What kind of name is that? Well, then again, she did survive an entire infestation on her own, so it might make sense to call her something after a slimy lizard. Anyway, it is discovered that all of the colonists are gathered beneath the planet's processing station, so the Marines go to investigate while Bishop studies the facehuggers. You guys don't mind, right? I'm just gonna stay here and study these guys for scientific purposes. Yes, this is for science. Totally not like the first movie. Nope, not at all. The unsuspecting soldiers find themselves entering a tunnel that has been secreted into an odd design like a hive or something.
Hot as hell in here. Yeah, man, but it's a dry heat.
So's an oven, but I don't think you want to stick your head in one of those. Oh, and Ripley points out something pretty obvious to Gorman.
Look where your team is. They're right under the primary heat exchangers.
Look, this whole station is basically a big fusion reactor.
We can't have any firing in there. I want you to collect magazines from everybody.
Is he fucking crazy?
I just thought of something. Hey dude, maybe you want to actually tell your team why you don't want them using bullets in there. You know, because it might make them understand better than just like, what? Is he crazy? No, that's not fair. Why can't we use bullets? I don't know. He must have an idea. But he doesn't tell us, so obviously it's not important. He's just being a dick. Hey, look guys, it's not a good idea to use bullets in there because everything's gonna explode if you hit something wrong. Oh man, it'd be game over, man. Yeah, let's not use bullets, man. They find a survivor only to witness firsthand what Ripley was trying to tell them earlier.
Alan.
Kill them with fire!
The xenomorphs ambushed them.
Maybe they don't show up on infrared at all.
Killing all but a select few who were rescued by Ripley.
Eat this!
It is decided that the best solution is to nuke the planet from the Sulaco, which Burke of course disagrees with.
Oh, hold on 1 second. This installation has a substantial dollar value attached to it.
Sadly, plans go awry as their dropship meets an unexpected fate.
Well, where the
Game over, man. It's game over.
Yeah, QTE missions are kind of annoying at times. One screw up, one wrong button, and the whole thing goes kaboom. Everyone returns to their base of operations to plan. Burke wants to take the facehuggers with them, which Ripley refuses to allow.
Those two specimens are worth millions to the bioweapons division.
People are dead, Burke! Don't you have any idea what you've done here? Well, I'm gonna make sure that they nail you right to the wall for this. You're not gonna sleaze your way out of this one.
In the midst of the chaos, it is also revealed that the processing station's reactor core is going to explode.
How long till it blows?
4 hours.
Bishop heads out to remotely control a dropship down to their location.
Andy crawled to freedom through 500 yards of shit-smelling foulness I can't even imagine.
During this time, Ripley and Newt wake up to find themselves under siege by the two facehuggers. After being rescued, they interrogate Burke, revealing his dastardly plot.
He figured that he could get an alien back through quarantine if one of us was impregnated. Me and Newt sabotaged certain freezers on the way home. Then he could jettison the bodies and make up any story he liked.
No, those are totally alternative facts. Just then the power goes out and the xenomorphs attack.
There they go over there! Get him!
Burke cowers in the heat of battle and meets his fate. As does Hudson, unfortunately.
Game over, man!
The others escape into the vents, but only Ripley, Newt, and Hicks make it out alive. Regrettably, the explosion knocks Newt through another shaft, and she is taken by the xenomorphs. Hicks and Ripley make their escape, but Hicks is injured just moments before they make it to the dropship. Ripley stocks up on weapons and ammo, thus showing that even in the distant future, duct tape is still universally used. Her exploits lead her to an alien nest where she rescues Newt and encounters the Queen. Now that is one badass looking alien, and that's an actual puppet. That is awesome. Ripley roasts the nest before the duo flees the scene.
Come on! God damn it!
The Queen chases after them as they make it back to the dropship in the nick of time.
You saved us.
I couldn't let you die.
It's up to us to take out Umbrella.
All seems well until... Ouch. Hey dude, you've got a little, yeah, never mind. Ripley fights the Queen in the most badass forklift ever.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Sending it into space to join its brethren from the previous film. They all go to sleep on a course for Earth. Where they will all live happily ever after as one family. The end. What? This is exactly what a sequel should be, as it is just as perfect as the original. The plot is superbly written as it does something completely different than the previous iteration, while also adding on to the mythos. We get to learn more about how the xenomorphs work, as they are quite insect-like, especially with the fact that they have a queen. Although it does bring to light one simple question. What came first, the xenomorph or the egg? Everything shows that James Cameron loved the original and came up with a truly outstanding idea as to how to continue the story without taking anything away from the original. This is how a sequel should be done, and it's something that most filmmakers and studios seem to have forgotten. The characters themselves, while being canon fodder, don't feel like it. They still feel like they are all important to the story, even if certain ones have little to no screen time. All of the major players of the Marines have at least one memorable moment or line. There is a lot of new mythology added into the mix of this universe. This small band of Marines gives you a feeling that they are part of something bigger, but the mysteries as to what or how remain shrouded even to this day. As entertaining as fan fictions and video games can be, we still know next to nothing about the official canon, which is a shame because nothing has ever really been explored on the Marines beyond this film. All of the actors also do a wonderful job with their characters, and they play their stereotypes delightfully. My favorite of the Marines is hands down Hicks. It takes a real badass to be willing to shoot a xenomorph point blank with a shotgun despite knowing what the consequences could entail. In addition, Bean's personality brings a subtle charisma to the character. It's also helpful that he tries to stay level-headed under any situation, although his falling asleep in the dropship adds a nice touch of comedy to his character. Ripley remains as strong as ever, if not stronger. She is considered by many to be the first true action heroine and was an inspiration for Cameron's creation of Sarah Connor in The Terminator. Learning about her daughter and the tragedy that entailed adds more depth to the character. This is also enhanced when her motherly regrets come to the surface the moment Newt is discovered. She is a broken woman but finds meaning in her life when she is given a second chance at motherhood. On the subject of Newt, Carrie Hines' performance was downright impressive considering this was the first time she'd ever acted. It's a shame she didn't bother to take up a career in acting, as I'm sure she would have been great. Nevertheless, this one-time role should have set a standard for child actors in horror-esque films.
Ripley. She doesn't have bad dreams because she's just a piece of plastic.
While I could talk for hours about how deep these characters are, I need to move on to another piece in the film's cinematic perfection, its effects. There were several different teams working on various parts of the movie, and the attention to detail is astounding. Unlike the Nostromo, the Sulaco looks huge on the inside, which makes sense since this is a ship designed for military purposes. The sets used for the facilities on LV-426 are equally as impressive. However, it is everything relating to the xenomorphs where this movie stands out. The original design by H.R. Giger will forever remain the definitive design for me, but this film's evolution of that design is no slouch either. Gone is the opaque dome with a skull showing through, and in is a more techno-organic looking skull that matches the skin color of the xenomorphs found in this film, which are brown by the way. This is often a little mistake people make because blue is the color that everything seems to be tinted in, so the xenomorphs look like they are blue, not brown. Stan Winston's company also helmed the design and execution of the Queen. Add on top the fact that most of that was done using a 14-foot puppet, and you have one of the best looking creatures on screen in cinematic history. A lot of work went into operating her, and it was well worth it. They also used a miniature version for the fight against Ripley in the loader. I don't think there's ever been a movie that has produced a superior looking critter that wasn't computer generated. In fact, that is one of the greatest things about this movie. Nearly everything was real. The fire was real, the props were real, the APC was real, the explosions were real, and it was all made on a budget of $18 million. Even with today's inflation, that is still cheaper than what most of the high budget movies cost to make today. This is one of the prime examples as to why practical effects will always be superior to digital ones. Lastly, the movie's score was composed by James Horner. Like Jerry Goldsmith before him, Horner's music is expertly crafted. Every cue to every chord to every scene hits the right notes. Funny enough, Horner had to rush his score for the film, and the music for the final confrontation was written over one night. Regardless, his talent was rewarded when he was nominated for an Oscar, which sadly he did not win. But what do the Oscar people know? Aliens is just as riveting and exciting as its predecessor. It adds on new mythology that would become a staple of the franchise from this point forward. Aliens is not only one of the greatest sequels ever made, but also one of the greatest movies ever made. It is just as good as its original. Whether you prefer the theatrical cut that came up first or James Cameron's own preferred extended edition, there is nothing wrong with a movie of this scale. So much so that nothing that followed up was ever going to live up to its potential. And with that said, I will be taking a look at Alien 3 next. Until then, bye.
Somebody said alien. She thought they said illegal alien and signed up.